Welcome to Arduino Made Easy. This is lesson 6. We're going to expand on what we did on lesson 5 with the ambient light sensors, and we're going to light up some LEDs with the readings that we take from there. So let's get started with this right now. I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. And if you would like to light up and automate your model railroad, Arduino is the easiest way to do that. And I'm going to show you how to program the Arduino as easy as possible. That's why it's called Arduino Made Easy. It's easy to begin with, but sometimes if you don't know what you're doing in electronics and coding, it might be a little bit difficult for you. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier for you. If you would like to see more videos like this on model railroading and Arduino, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, ding that bell so you can be notified whenever I have a new video coming out. And speaking of videos, take a look at my playlist where you could find a lot of different videos categorized for you to find easily on any subject on model railroading that you would like to be looking for. So take a look at it. So let's get started with this right now and see what we have here on our breadboard. Now this is where we left off last week with the two ambient light sensors. We have them hooked up to A0 and A2. Now all we need now is two LEDs, two 330 ohm resistors, and two jumper wires. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find a spot on here, preferably right in the center, and we're going to jump from one side to the other with these resistors. See, I have one side of the resistor on one side of the gap and one on the other side of the gap. Let me move that over one because I want to put my LED back here. I got that jumper over there. Some of these boards right here continue all the way through, but this one here cuts off right in the center, so we have to put jumpers in there if we want the power from here to go on to the other half. So we'll put that one there, and then this one right here. All right, now we'll put the LEDs in there. Now the long end is going to go on the resistor side, and the short end is going to go on our negative bus. And we'll do that on each one. Make sure they line up with the resistor. Okay, now we're going to come over here. We're going to put our yellow wire right there, and we're going to go on number 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll stick that over there. And number 3. So 2 down from that on number 3. And put this right here. So we're all set with that. We have our two LEDs. We have the resistors in line with the LEDs. And one going to pin number 5 on the digital side, and one pin to number 3 on the digital side. And that's all we're going to need. Oop, and I got to put this power back on there. It popped out of there when I moved it. Okay. Now this is the sketch, same thing as lesson 5. So we're going to have to add a few more to this right here. And so what we have to do is put in the integer, and we'll do LED 1 equal pin 3, and we'll do integer LED 2 equal pin 5. Okay, and that's all we need right there. And what we're going to also do is put a wait time in there, so we'll call it wait. And we'll do it 300 milliseconds. We're going to add a couple of more entries here, and I'll explain them later, but what we're going to do is do another integer, and we'll do flash state equals 0. We'll do integer flash time equal 0, and these are basically just placeholders for variables on here. Now we're going to do long. Now this is a longer, oops, flash interval equal 900. Okay, now these three are going to go with a function that we're going to create later on, and I'll explain that. And this comes from, now let me put a separator in here, and we'll just go like this so we know this is going to a function. And you don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this to keep this separated so you could see that these variables right here are for something different that we're going to do in this sketch. Before we get too far along, I caught a mistake in here towards the end, and I want to show it to you now so we don't get confused later on. But this flash time should be long instead of integer. What we want to do in our setup right here, we're going to put in pin mode and LED 1 is an output, and the same thing with LED 2. That is also an output. Now we have the serial begin, we're starting the monitor. What we want to do is we want to keep our LEDs off until they're triggered. So what we're going to have to do is put in a digital write and say we want the LED to be low, both of them to be off. So we're going to put in digital write. Digital write, okay, I spelled it right. LED 1 is low. And LED 2 is also low. So what that is saying is when we start this sketch, when we put power to it, those LEDs are going to be off until something happens. What happens is going to be in the loop. Now we started it off by saying serial print east reading, and we're going to keep that in there, but we're going to take this west reading out of here for right now, because we're going to put the west reading in later on. Now we have if east reading is less than 300 serial print trigger LED, we're going to take out the trigger LED, and we're going to put a function in there. But first of all, we're going to do this and just say function, and that'll get us started right there. We're going to put the function in there, but we have else if west reading 300. We're going to put that down a little bit lower. And as you recall, whenever we have an if statement in there, we have the curly braces, and if this statement is true, whatever is inside the curly braces we will do, and if it's false, will go beyond that to the next line. So we're going to put our function in there in a little bit. But before we do that, we're going to add another else if statement. And that else if is also going to be for the east reading. And I'll explain that as soon as I type it in. Else if, then EASTR east reading, in this one, greater than or equal to 400. On the first one where it's less than 300, we want to start the flasher. We're going to put our finger over it. When we take our finger off of it, the reading is going to go higher. So what we want to do is we want to give it another command as the reading is going up before it gets to its maximum. So we're going to say if east reading is greater than or equal to 400, and we put 2 ampersands in there, and that means and. That means and. So it's greater than 400, and we're going to say less than 600. So we're going to go east reading is less than or equal to 600. We'll close the parentheses, and then we'll put a curly brace in there. In that one, we're going to do this again. We're going to put another function, and we'll just say another function right there. We're going to do the same thing with the west reading. Okay, we started off the east reading with 300. And then we did an else if. Now what happens in there is when you do an if, when it's finished with the true statement and goes to false, it goes down to the next line, and that's the else if. Now it will look for those conditions in there. So it'll look for greater than 400 and less than 600. When it's in between those two parameters right there, it'll trigger this other function. And when that other function is finished, it'll step down to the next else if, which we're saying west reading is less than 300. So we're looking on the other side of the grade crossing. And when that one gets covered, then we'll put in another function. And we'll just do the same thing. Do we have a curly brace? We don't have a curly brace for the loop. Okay, do we have an extra one in here? Boom, boom. We got to make sure all our curly braces are in there. So we'll put one down here for the loop. There we go. All right, now we have that else if function, so we need to put another else if in here. Instead of writing all this out, we're just going to copy this right here and change it to west. And we'll just change west reading, another function. So we have the if, another else if, and it'll continue to step down through these else ifs as long as those conditions are true. So once all these else if statements are satisfied and we come down to after the last else if, we're going to put an else in there. And what that says is once all those have been satisfied and they're no longer true, we'll step down to the next step. And that next step is we're going to write those LEDs low again. So we'll put else and then a curly brace. And we'll put another curly brace in there and then just move this down. We want both LEDs to turn off, so we'll give a digital write. LED 1 is going to be low, and another digital write. LED 2 is going to be low. Oops. Low. Let's walk you through the whole thing right here. We're in the setup, and we're starting off with the LEDs off. So once we get into the loop, we're identifying the east reading as an analog read east pin. So we're taking the readings off the east pin and west pin. We're actually monitoring what those settings are. So we're coming down to the next line, and we're saying if east reading is less than 300. As long as that reading is less than 300, we're going to be doing this function here. When that reading goes above 300 and goes in between 400 and 600, we're going to do another function. And once it goes above 600, we'll step down to the next one and we'll look for the west reading. And when that west reading is less than 300, then we'll do the function over again. And what that function, the function is we're going to blink the LEDs. Once that is above 300 and we take our finger off of it, it's going to go above 300 and go to its maximum. But it's before it gets to that maximum, it's going to get between 400 and 600. And when it does that, we're going to do another function. And what that another function is we're going to extend the flashing. So normally, whenever you trigger something, as soon as you take that trigger away, that function stops. So what we're going to do is extend that function. So we're going to simulate that, say we're just using a locomotive and running through a grade crossing. As soon as that locomotive goes over that ambient light sensor, it's going to shut off. So we want to extend that until it gets to the other one. So that's what this another function is. We're going to extend that flashing for a certain amount of time, and we're going to use 10 seconds on here, just to be safe. Now you could adjust that to whatever you need it for, depending on how far apart you put the light sensors in your track. As soon as the locomotive covers over the light sensor on the west reading, it'll go below 300 and the lights will stay on, since they were on from another function. So as soon as it crosses over and does not cover the light sensor anymore, that light sensor is going to read somewhere between 400 and 600 when it gets up to its maximum. When it does that, we're going to trigger that another function again and let it stay on for another 10 seconds. Once that becomes false, we'll come down to else and we'll turn off both LEDs. Now these functions that I'm talking about, I copied these from Jeff Bunz's gate crossing sketch that he did in 2014. He also did the actual gates. He used servos in there and everything, but we're just going to use the LEDs in this one. He used 2 sets of LEDs. I'm only using 1 set in here, but we're going to create 2 functions. Since this is Arduino Made Easy, I'm not going to try to explain everything in these functions, and I don't expect you to understand the functions either, but just like anything else in the IDE, if you look in the reference on the web page, you'll see a lot of functions in there. Well, you could also create your own function, and what we're going to do, you could see right here in the void loop, there's the beginning of the void loop and there's the end of the void loop right here. So we're going to go beyond that loop, and we're going to come down here and we're going to create a function. And the first function we're going to create is flash LEDs. So the way we do that is we write in a void, and we're going to call it flash LEDs, and we put in the parentheses there, and then we'll put in a brace. And so whatever is inside that brace is going to be a part of that function. So we'll put a closing brace in there, and we'll move this down a little bit so we have some room here. If oops. we're doing a flash state is equal to, and we're going to use a tilde here. And what that tilde means is it basically is just the opposite of whatever we're talking about. Oops, I forgot the comma in there. All right, comma. Oops. Since this is Arduino Made Easy, I'm not going to try to explain how these functions work in this video. I'm going to do a separate video on this function and the extend function, so we'll be able to understand it a little bit better in there, so we won't complicate things in this video here. Where this says function, we're going to actually put in the function. So what we're going to say is flash LEDs, and then since it's a function, we put in the parentheses and then the semicolon. So let's go through this, let's compile this and see what happens. Let's see if I made any spelling errors through this whole time. Okay, digital write was not declared. Okay, I found all my errors in here, my spelling errors. I had digital write WTITE, so, and there was a couple other places that I forgot to put the semicolon, and I had a couple of parentheses backwards, so let's see if it'll work right now. So it's taking some time, it's going through it. So far so good. To Arduino genuine exit status error compiling for board Arduino genuine in Uno. Let me see, let's come up here. Well, after playing around with this for about a half an hour, I finally, after uninstalling and reinstalling the latest update on there, and I'll show you what I did here, right here. Here. In Boards Manager, last night I was trying to install my Pro Mini, and I have to install a FTDI driver, and I never did get it going, but ever since then I suppose it messed up this right here, Arduino AVR boards. And what I had to do was right here where it says more information, I went back and put it back into 1.6.20, ran it like that, okay, and then it says still had an error with it because it couldn't find a file. So then I restarted my computer, did it again, went back to this 1.6.21, restarted my computer, and then it started working again. Now where we were was we created that function right here, flash LEDs. So what I did was I put it up here and we were downloading it or uploading it to the board. So let me show you the board. And what I had to do is I had to increase this up to 400 right here. So what I'm going to do, this one right here, I had to increase to 400. So what we'll do is we'll increase this to 450 and have it between 450 and 600. So we'll compile that and upload that to the board. And you can see it's uploading it now. All right, so what's happening is it's flashing like it should. Now, the reason nothing is happening with this 450 to 600 is because I don't have anything in there right now. I have to make another function to extend the flash further. So when I take my finger off, these LEDs will continue to flash until I cover this one right here. And see, there's nothing on this one here. Let me put a flash LEDs over here also. We'll put this on the west side. And we'll compile that and upload it. And we'll see, we'll get it to run on both sides there. Okay, so we have it here on this side, and we have it here on this side. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to make another function, and we're going to call it extend flashing. So we'll put this right above the flash LEDs. So we'll start off by void again, and extend extend flashing, and then we have to do these right here. We'll move this one down, and this is a little bit shorter. Let me do and we have wait time. Put that in there. Flash time. Flash time equal milliseconds, millis. Okay, so wait time equal milli milliseconds. And then here's where we're going to add the extra time, and we'll put in 10 seconds. So that's 10,000 right there. Okay, we'll do that, and we'll do a while statement. While wait time is greater than milliseconds. We're going to flash LEDs. There we go. Okay, now what this is doing here, okay, extend flashing. So we're declaring wait time. I should put that a little W. Yeah, that's a little W, wait time. That looked good. So what we're going to do, we're going to extend flashing. We're just going to copy this, and we're going to come up here and put it right here. Extend flashing in that one, and we're going to put extend flashing in this one right here. So after the LEDs flash and we take our finger away, it's going to go do the next else if, and that's the extend flashing, and that's going to add 10 seconds on to the flashing time. And that's just like if we just have a locomotive on there and the locomotive passes the cell, it's going to go past there, and it's going to give us enough time for it to reach the other one on the other side So that one will take over, so the lights will continue flashing while the locomotive is going through that crossing. So let's compile that and then upload it. Expected, oops, where we go? There we go, right there. Right there, so it should have done it twice. Extend flashing. And you'll notice that it starts at the bottom and goes up when it finds errors. Let's see it this way here. Okay, so let's upload this. Now we're going to simulate a grade crossing with the photocells in the track. So we're just going to use a locomotive going through, so we don't have to have a real long train, but the locomotive comes past and covers up the photocell. Okay, so it flashes, and now it goes past there and is going over the grade crossing, and it covers up the other photocell, and then it continues. Now we'll simulate it coming the other way, so we're covering that up, and it'll pass it, and then it'll come over and cover the other side. It's going a little bit faster than what you would normally do, and we'll go away from it. But anyway, you could put these as far away as you want, and you could change your settings on it for it to extend your flashing beyond 10 seconds if you need more time. And you could also adjust what is your values on your photo sensor depending on the ambient light on your layout. Now, like I said before, I'm not going to tell you how these functions work. I'm going to do a separate video on that to explain it, because this is just easy stuff on here. As always, the fritzing diagram and the sketch can be found on tomstrainsandthings.com/Arduino. You can put the serial print line and whatever value you want in certain parts of that sketch to see what is happening through each one of those else-if statements. And that way you can get a better grasp of what's going on in there. You can put a line in there for the milliseconds. You could also put a line in there for flash time, and you could compare what the figures are for the flash time and what they are for the milliseconds to see how this actually works in the sketch. That's a good thing to do on any sketch that you make. Put in the print lines and monitor your sketch with the serial monitor, so you could see when you make changes in there what happens from line to line, and you could follow that and put, you could just write those print lines in there anywhere you want and take a value, and put the value in there, see what the value is at that particular point in the sketch, and that'll give you a better understanding of what's going on within the sketch itself. Next one, we're going to be working on something else. We're going to do the same thing with this right here. Now, this is an infrared sensor, and it just gives a high and a low reading, and we're going to put that on our breadboard in place of these right here. This is what we've been using. So we're going to be using the infrared sensor. And like I said at the very beginning, you could use any kind of sensor and run anything. So it doesn't have to be lights, it could be anything. The possibilities are endless in Arduino, so we'll see you.